Welcome to Movie Monday on Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon.
And Mom, we appreciate you joining us today. Today we're going to talk about the movie Short Circuit 2.
Yes, this is the sequel to, of course, Short Circuit that we just spoke about here on our channel. And so we watched it on the Tubi streaming service that released in July of 1988. And Mom, if you're ready, I'm ready to go ahead and get on it. I hope you're doing well.
I am doing fine. Thank you for asking, Brandon. And yes, I will just give a very brief synopsis. This, as you mentioned, is the second part of the Short Circuit series. And in this particular episode, Ben returns. He's the link between the two movies. Ben, he comes back in this particular movie more so as a toy manufacturer, and he's trying to sell his robots per se to other people. In the midst of all of this, he kind of, whether he wants or not, kind of gets a partner out of the deal, and he works with this particular person. And then Johnny Five returns, who is also the link between the two movies. And Johnny Five, of course, is the robot. He comes to the city, sent by Stephanie, who was in the last movie. We do find out in this particular movie that the building where Ben is located at is going to be demolished pretty soon, and the building just happens to be located right next to a bank. And the bad people in the movie want to steal the jewels out of the bank. In order to do that, they need to actually go through the building where Ben is located at. And that in itself sets the scene for the whole movie. And we're able to see how they are able to, whether if we find out whether they overcome this, or and we're also given the history of what kind of happens later to Johnny Five as he explores the city and learns a little bit more about friendship or not friendship and things like that.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, it's a pretty interesting movie, and yeah, and so it just came out just about 2 years after the original one, and I kind of like that we have a different direction. I mean, with this in the sense that we're not just picking it up from from the main protagonist of the original, but instead we're going over to Ben, who, as we mentioned just last week, who disappeared in the movie.
Yeah, he did. Well, at least we figured out where he is now. But yes, he did disappear in the last movie, and it was nice to see that they broadened his character because he did. I thought he was an interesting person in the first movie, who kind of had a lot of potential, and so it's nice to see that they were able to expand all that and create this character into a longer movie, and to see what he was able to do in the world with all this knowledge he did have about creating this robot.
Yes, and yeah, and speaking of that, though, since you mentioned creating the robot, is as you mentioned before, Stephanie from the previous movie is the one that sent Johnny Five over to visit Ben in this movie, but Doctor Crosby from the previous one, though he's mentioned like in passing a few times, is largely not spoken about.
Yeah, which is interesting. And I guess maybe they just wanted us to see that there is a connection there and that both Stephanie and Mr. Crosby are both together, and that they wanted to give Johnny Five, well, they had to include Johnny Five in the movie, of course, but they needed a way to get Johnny Five over, but at the same time, without dwelling a lot on the previous characters.
Yeah, definitely. But diving into this movie overall, so like, what were your overall thoughts about this movie? Like, what did you like or not like about the sequel?
I really did like the sequel. A lot of times I find that I like the second parts of movies better than I like the first part of movies. Although in this movie, I will say in this franchise, I did like the first one better for myself. And I don't know if it's more nostalgic for me, which is why. But anyway, I like that there was a coherent storyline. I like that they were able to link it very well and to give some closure to some open-ended storylines that they had in the first movie. I like the development of number five. I thought they did a really nice job of showing how he still needed more input, even though they did everything they could. They gave him everything of the knowledge that they thought they could give him because it was more of a farmland community where they were previously, or a small town community, I should say, and now he's in the city. So I did like that they were able to show that Johnny Five still needs to learn about not only himself, but well, not only about the city, but he learns about himself at the same time, since he says he's alive. And then I like that they explored Ben as a character and what became of him. I thought that they did a nice job, and I like that they gave him a friend to work with, and then there's also a girlfriend in there somewhere also. So I like that they kind of combine all of that together.
Yeah, and speaking of the girlfriend Sandy for this, so something I kind of liked for this movie that I think did a little bit better than the previous one is that I like that it largely moved towards having the with the individual characters sort of stand on their own, because I know in the previous one, at least towards the beginning of the movie, that the large conversations between Dr. Crosby and Ben were just largely about like meeting new women and all this and that. And so I like that this one sort of moved away from that, even though we sort of see that with Sandy. I like that that's at least not the main focus of the first part of the movie, so to speak. Um, but yeah, but I like that overall, like you said, that Ben's able to have a new friend in Fred Ritter, and I kind of like the dynamic that they have. That they're sort of like frenemies, so to speak. Like they're not really there for the same reason, but Fred is actually loyal to Ben, but maybe not necessarily Johnny Five.
Yeah, and but they did bridge that gap toward the end of the movie. Not to give too many spoilers, but they did let Fred and Johnny Five become friends per se, or he was able to help Johnny at a time period where Johnny needed some help.
Yeah, and I sort of like the bonding moments between Johnny Five and each of the different characters, and especially like I said, the one with Ben and Fred, especially towards the middle of the movie where it's sort of like their life really depended on it, and that they're able to bond over their very niche habits, but I like that. Like I said, despite everything that happened throughout the movie, that they at least overall like were able to end on the same page, and that they do have their each other's best interests and Johnny Five's like at the top for them.
Yeah, that's true too. True too.
But yeah, and so I did want to mention too that Johnny Five is learning a lot about humanity in this movie and sort of the rights and wrongs of things. Where he was easily persuaded to steal 57 car stereos within this movie, but yet it's like Ben was trying to teach him, well, yeah, that's wrong, that's stealing, and well, obviously it's illegal as well, but also sort of learning what it means to be human, and that not everyone was really treating Johnny Five with respect, and that even those who were didn't have his best interests at heart, like the overall bad guy of the movie.
Yeah, and that was hard for Johnny to learn, and actually, part of me was hard for me to watch too. That watching as they were taking advantage of Johnny Five throughout the movie, and then once Johnny realized what happened to him, the look and the expression, even though it was presented as a robot, but the expression on his face when he realized what was going on.
Yeah, that is so true, and yeah, and sort of how even yeah, similar to the last movie, we have to persuade people that Johnny Five is indeed alive, so to speak. Even though he may be machine in nature, but for here, it's where as we were just mentioning, that even those who believe that he is indeed real, that they're still taking advantage of him, just seeing him as numbers. In fact, even Fred tried to sell Johnny Five simply because he is indeed worth, as they wrote down, $11,002,076.17.
That's a lot of money. Yes.
But yeah, and so but overall, like, what were your thoughts about, like I said, the movie as a whole? Would you watch this movie again?
Sorry. Yes, Brandon, I would watch this movie again. I really liked the movie. I was surprised. Like I said, I remember seeing it before 10 years ago, but I did not remember the details of the movie. And so it was nice to watch again, and I can watch the movie again.
Yeah, I certainly can watch it as well. Like I said, I really like what it did with Ben's character. I think it really humanized him a bit more than just a a sort of little bit more generic character in the first one. Although I thought his characterization was pretty intriguing, but I like that they really had a chance to flesh him out, and I really like I said, the partnership that he had with Fred in this movie, and so. Like I said, I just really like their dynamic, and for the little bits that we do see of Sandy, I sort of like that she at least can be a person, but I kind of wish they would have done more with her character other than being the love interest.
Yeah, yeah, very true too. And Bran, do you think this fit in well with being a sequel?
I think so, and I think in my personal fault, I know you mentioned that you like sequels better than the first one, which I usually let's say agree to, and yeah, but I think one of the troubles that a lot of times you have when making sort of franchises, so to speak, is that you're sort of very tied into the first one, and at least by giving this one a whole sort of new set of characters, so to speak, to focus on, that you do get to separate it from the original movie. It's not like, oh well, this one began right when the first one ended. It's a different movie with just yeah a separate storyline that just follows the first one. So I like that it's able to be its own story, and I like what they were able to do with it.
Yeah, I thought they did a really nice job with the sequel. I like that they had a really nice connection there, and which I think is so extremely important for sequels is to be able to have that connection between the first and the second movie, and to actually keep the same momentum going that was in the first movie to keep it with the second movie also.
Yeah, and I mean there were a lot of lighthearted moments and also a lot of serious moments within this movie, like seeing Johnny Five going through the world's largest bookstore, which I have to wonder where that is. But yeah, being able to see that and Johnny Five's mugshot was definitely yeah hilarious. But towards the end with some of the more dramatic and emotional scenes, I think it just really allowed for this movie to be really fleshed out. And I think for me, the emotional scenes are always with the feelings as opposed to necessarily the action. And I like that this movie felt more personal, whereas the other one felt more wider scope.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because with Johnny Five itself, even though as a robot, I felt really emotional when the bad guys tried to beat him up, and then that's not giving away much of the movie, but they did try to do the one gentleman tried to do it, or he tried to have someone else do it for him, and to see Johnny Five go down was actually because at that point in time you've seen, and because we both watched both movies back to back, um, you were able to feel more emotion. You in general, people were able to feel more emotional because you were able to see that Johnny says he's alive, and here it appears as though he is, and so, you know, and you had to feel something when they tried to rebuild him as much as they could.
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely would watch, like I said, this movie again. And we do have some, some little connections here, especially with the actor that plays Fred.
Oh yeah, what's our connection, Brandon?
Yeah, so the actor that plays Fred, Michael McKean, he played Winnie in Laverne and Shirley, a show that we've spoken about back last year.
Yes, he does, and I was happy to see his name pop up because I completely have forgotten that he was in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. And I should say that was earlier this year that we spoke about Laverne and Shirley. And then there were some other smaller ones too, like the composer of this, Charles Fox. He was the music composer of a lot of shows that we had watched earlier, such as Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah, that's great. All comes together.
But yeah, and so like I said, it's definitely it was really fun watching like I said, this movie. And yeah, but I can't believe that we are, I believe, done with the franchise now.
Yeah, I think we are. I think we are. So we know that we picked, an older movie. Well, both of these movies are the first for these two in this series were older, and so we'd love to hear what other movies people want us to look at. So please feel free. Keep in mind we like more comedies than anything, but if give us some suggestions down in the comments below.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, give us some suggestions. We're very excited to do more movie Mondays. I didn't think we were gonna do the first three so quickly.
I didn't either, Brandon. I said we appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, and we can't wait to speak with you next time.
All right, everyone, have a great
And
day.
we'll see you soon. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video as well.
All right, bye bye, everyone.